Hola. Hey, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this next session, Gabriela Sampaio. I will hand it over to you, Gabriela.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Nice to see your comments here. And I would like also first to thank youth climate leaders for this invitation and to also organize this massive and impressive event. I am very honored to be the moderator today, and we have amazing people bringing amazing context here, especially currently that we are facing different scenarios and challenging scenarios here. So let me briefly introduce myself, and then we can start also with our invitees. As Steven mentioned, I'm Gabriela Sampaio. Currently, I'm Program Manager of the Innovative Solutions Program here at FAS, Sustainable Amazon Foundation, which is a private foundation based in the Amazonas state that works with protected areas, state protected areas, and focus on improving life quality of traditional forest people and environmental conservation here. So it's a very nice initiative that brings not only riverine people but indigenous, a very diverse group of people that work closely to keep standing forests here with us. So as Stephen mentioned, we are in the Day of Climate Professional, which is celebrated today, and to discuss a little bit on that, and also on the role of the Amazon and indigenous peoples as original climate professionals, we have this representative participation when we talk about the Amazon, when we talk about climate change, and also about indigenous people. And as we follow in the news and even on Twitter, which is a very fan, climate change is compromising the way of life of Native people, compromising their health and affecting the routine of their traditions. They are among the first to face in its different consequences due to their dependence upon and close relationship with the environment and its resources. Climate change exacerbates the difficulties already faced by indigenous communities, including political and economic marginalization, loss of land and resources, human rights violations, discriminalization, and unemployment. And it's very important also to mention that these indigenous and native peoples contribute to the list of greenhouse emissions. So there is a unfair imbalance here in the territory. And one of our panelists especially brought us a concept of tipping point, where the Amazon is reaching this area, this tipping point due to deforestation and becoming an area of savanna. If this happens, it will reach 22 or 25% of forests. And today the deforestation here is around 17%. And at the pace that we are at, the 20% scenario will happen in 15 years. So this is an urgent call, and this is very important to address this kind of discussion with people and different stakeholders also. And as a powerful tool to combat climate change, we can mention two examples among many others. One of these is life plans, which is a tool used by indigenous people to plan their way of life. It is based on 5 dimensions of community lives that are governance, health, education, natural resources, culture, and economy. And also the engagement of the scientists and science to present scenarios and possibilities for mitigating and also adapting to climate change urgently. For these reasons, we believe that it's necessary to increase the scope of this discussion and list different narratives. And that's why we have here with us today these 3 very nice and interesting people to present their point of view on that. The first of them is Seneya Duvali. She is joining us by video conference, unfortunately. She's from the Wapichana ethnic group, and also she is the coordinator of the Department of Territorial and Environmental Management at the Indigenous Council of Roraima. The slang is SIR. She manages also the Indigenous Climate Change Community and is member of the Amazon Cooperation Network, RCA. The second panelist will be Jósimo Constant, which is currently a doctoral student in social anthropology in the National Museum of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And he's developing a research with the Puyanawa people, which is his ethnic group. And also he is elaborating a rich ethnography addressing the main cultural elements with focus on his mother tongue. The third, but not the least, is Carlos Nobre, which is one of the leading scientists in global climate change in Brazil and has been dedicated to climate related studies for over 40 years. He holds a PhD in meteorology from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and currently is leading the third Via Amazonica Amazonia 4.0 initiative, which combines science, technology, innovation, and strategic planning to then generate a standing forest bioeconomy based on products with added value and grow socioeconomic status for local people. I would like to invite you all to put your questions and remarks here in the chat so we can address later with general questions from the audience. So to begin, I would like to ask Steven to put Sineia's video so we can start the panel.
Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Sou Seneya Wapichana. A minha organização de base é o Conselho Indígena de Roraima. Neste dia tão especial que vamos falar sobre o profissional do clima, os povos indígenas têm um papel relevante e importante nesse tema, porque desde sempre os povos indígenas, com os seus conhecimentos e sabedoria tradicional, eles têm conservado e mantido a floresta em pé. Quando falamos de floresta, não falamos só das árvores grandes, mas falamos de todos os biomas. Por exemplo, em Roraima, nós temos um bioma que é diferente de todos os biomas da Amazônia, que é o lavrado, que chamamos de savana. E os povos indígenas, com seu conhecimento, têm mantido essas florestas em pé. Mas nós precisamos também, através de políticas públicas, garantir o direito dos povos indígenas, principalmente na demarcação das terras, que hoje é necessária para a questão das mudanças climáticas. As terras indígenas, elas são barreira para o desmatamento. Temos exemplos disso na Amazônia brasileira. E eu quero deixar uma mensagem aos povos indígenas de todo o mundo e também aos não indígenas. Nós precisamos fazer uma força-tarefa para que o clima não aumente a temperatura, porque sabemos que quem vai sofrer principalmente com isso são os povos indígenas que estão direto em contato com a natureza. E muito mais a natureza, que ela é a subsistência dos povos indígenas. Então nós precisamos da ajuda de todos, nesse dia do profissional do clima, olhar para a questão ambiental de todos os países. E eu chamo todos os países do planeta, para a gente ter esse olhar, a questão do tema das mudanças climáticas no Brasil, na Amazônia brasileira e no mundo. Juntos somos mais fortes!
Thank you, Steven. It was a very nice video. I picked up very nice terms and information that Sineia brought us. For example, one of them is that the forest concerns all of the biomes, and she's in a very specific region in Roraima that they have Lavrado biome, which is called a savanna. Also, something very important is that it's necessary that we have public policies to guarantee rights. And one of them is the demarcation of indigenous land, which is a very strong issue that we are facing here in Brazil currently. Also, she pointed out that we need to make a strong task so that that the climate does not increase in temperature, and it because mostly of the impact of it in indigenous people. So Sineia brought to us a lot of very important topics, so we can address later with general questions and also with the other panelists. And with that, moving on to Jósimo, that will have 5 minutes to answer. I would like to invite him to be here side by side with me. And I have a first question now. Hi, Jósimo. How are you?
Hello, I am good. And you?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be here and moderate it and have you here. So I brought to you a very interesting topic. Is that first of all, your journey is very interesting and very inspiring because you left Acre State and entering the university to study anthropology. And I was wondering, considering that you grow up with indigenous tradition and very close to the community, and move it to the city also, how do you evaluate the impact of climate change on the lives tradition of these indigenous people from maybe a cultural and social point of view? What is the impact for you? How it was, how it is today when you go there? Let me know your thoughts. So you have 5 minutes to address this first question.
Okay, Gabriela. First of all, I apologize to you because my English is in progress. I don't speak English well, but I'm going to try. My name is Jósimo Constant in Portuguese. Candaria is my mother tongue. Candaria, more or less, means more or less a good teacher. A good teacher because I love learning language. I love learning to work with my indigenous narratives. I am of the Puyanawa indigenous nation, Acre, Brazil. Puyanawa means a frog, people of the frog. About the frogs, first of all, I would like to say the frogs need to live. Need to live because if the frogs don't sing, the planet, the land, and all animals can die. Sadly, die. Nowadays, I am elaborating a beautiful work about my people, my indigenous nation. Because if I am a frog using these metaphors, the frogs have beautiful and important knowledge to share with you. For example, in the past, we had many crops, like I don't know that word. I don't know say that word in English. Mandioca.
Manioc.
Yeah,
It's almost the same, yeah.
yeah. But nowadays, these types of crops are disappearing. Unfortunately, are disappearing because the impacts of the climate. The climate is we have suffering man disasters. The rivers are drying. The rivers, the animals are disappearing because there are many pollutions in the rivers, many pollutions, a lot of pollution in the rivers, and the frogs are dying. So these impacts are increasing the heat, increasing the deforestation, and in Puyanawa we have types of frogs. For example, Kampung, Puya, Chunky, and Tua. today we have 3 types of frogs because the other types, species of frogs, died. We have 3 species. So this is my message for all. We have to protect the Amazon forest. We have to protect the rivers. We have to protect the animals because the frogs need to live. If the frogs die, everybody can die as well. This is my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Jósimo, for your message. It was very inspiring and also very powerful, as was the Sineia's one. It's very important to me as I always say, as a privileged people, to have you and also to have Sineia here, bringing the experience and bringing also the impacts. So a few things that you mentioned that I can address here is that in the past year, people had a lot of crops of manioc, and currently many types of it are disappearing because of the impact of climate change. There are a lot of disasters as well. For example, the rivers are drying up. There are a lot of pollutions, and the animals are dying. So it's very nice because you mentioned it about the frogs, and I know that the etymologic name of your indigenous group is related to, I think it's your name is related to little fish, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was also thinking about it, and also you said that the impacts of it are increasing the heat and deforestation. So and related to the cultural scenario, what are the impacts? Have your people have been moved out, for example, some crops, some areas of agriculture or things like that, or moved among the territory? Is there any impact on that?
No, on the territory, no. But the rivers, mainly the rivers. The rivers are drying. Uh, the crops, the animals is disappearing. Animals and mainly the heat. The heat is increasing. Is increasing here. We have facing these problems here. Heat, just heat. The elderly complains every day about this climate impact, the climate change, mainly the heat.
I see. Okay, Jósimo. So I'll now we'll go with Carlos, which is our next panelist, and later you come back because I have some general questions to you too. Okay? Okay, Jósimo, thank you. Hi, Carlos. Hi again.
Hello. Good afternoon to all.
Hello. Good afternoon. So I also prepared a question for you, and then we go with the general ones. So this question is related especially about your work, because I know that you have Amazon as a laboratory to study and have a lot of insights on that. So regarding that, and how can we, for example, create links and bridges to bring science recommendations and results closer to native people, to indigenous people that are actually based on remote regions here in the Amazon? I mean, there are a lot of groups that are in the deep Amazon. So how can we put together, or at least put closer, the science with these traditional practices? And especially because they are facing land threats, health and climate crisis, and also human rights issues. So how can we do that in your point of view?
Well, let me first try to relate to what indigenous peoples do in terms of two areas. First, ecosystem services. Let me try to put a metric for people to get a good understanding. The indigenous territories in the Brazilian Amazon, it's something like close to 1 million square kilometers, 25% of the forest. And these forests, undisturbed forests, or not too much disturbed forests, although climate change is having an effect on those forests. But those forests still, they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And they remove about 0.5 ton of carbon per year per hectare. When you make the calculations, this 1 million square kilometers, etc., and divide that by the number of indigenous people who maintain the indigenous territories as the least deforested area in the global tropics. So if you make that calculation, then you say per capita, indigenous people in the Brazilian Amazon are responsible for 200 tons of carbon dioxide per year. But what we call negative emission, it's the carbon dioxide that comes from the atmosphere and is removed by the forests. When we look at the Brazilian greenhouse gas emissions, we reached this year a per capita average of 8 tons of CO2, of carbon dioxide, per capita, per Brazilian inhabitant. 4 tons are deforestation and land degradation, fires. 2 are from agriculture and 2 from energy emissions, fossil fuel emissions. So make this comparison. We Brazilians are emitting 8 tons per year, and the indigenous people in the Amazon are absorbing 200 tons. 200 tons. Because they keep their territory, because they have a cultural value of keeping the forest standing. So that's what science is really. This is the metrics we know very well. You know, if you put in economic terms, you know, currently, you know, international markets for carbon credits, something like $10 per, like Norwegian government offers $10 per ton of carbon dioxide. So you're talking about each indigenous person is responsible for economic ecosystem service, serving humanity, serving the planet, about $2,000 a year. So just to give you a comparison, this is only one ecosystem service, a very important one. But of course, we also, the forests maintain the climate cooler, cool forests. Without the forests, the temperature in the surface in the Amazon would be 2, 3, 4 degrees warmer, as we are seeing in degraded and the clear-cut areas. So this air also, the trade winds come from the ocean, sweep through the Amazon forest and reach the Cerrado, the central Brazil. So it would reach central Brazil 2, 3, 4 degrees warmer, having a tremendous impact on the biome, but particularly on agriculture in that area of Brazil. So this is another ecosystem service, and the forest keeps a huge variety of pollinators and mitigates climate extremes like droughts and strong rainfall. So the forest really plays out a tremendous value, not only cultural, spiritual, ethical, but also economic value. And the indigenous people are maintaining the forest. So we should initially recognize that value. It's very important to recognize that value. So, and of course, this is the ecosystem service. And then we can ask, and science is really uncovering something that indigenous people know for thousands of years in the Amazon. You know, you're talking about manioc. Well, indigenous women in their gardens over thousands of years, they derived hundreds of varieties of manioc, hundreds. One indigenous group in Peru holds 430 different varieties of manioc. There are thousands of varieties of cocoa species, the tree, acai, and many other trees and plants that over thousands of years, the indigenous people came to the Amazon 12,000 years ago. So they developed a new forest, let's call an indigenous economy. And the indigenous people use a vast number of forest products for their well-being. So they have seen thousands of years ago. They also, in their Sweden type of agriculture, they would have cut down the forest a little bit, have crops for 5, 10, 15 years. They would abandon, the forest would regrow, and this system created the dark earth, terra preta de índio, over thousands of spots, improving the fertility. Tropical soils, Amazonian tropical soils, are very nutrient poor because of the high water, high rainfall for millions of years, leached away nutrients from the soil. So the indigenous people corrected in huge number of sites through the dark earth. They conquered that. So the indigenous people saw for thousands of years something that now science is unveiling. Now the economic value of the forest standing is much higher than cutting down the forest and replacing one species grass, one species grain, soy, maize. So that's really something that we should thank the indigenous people for their knowledge, for keeping the forest. And now we have tried to merge traditional knowledge with scientific knowledge and come up with a new development pathway, a new paradigm for the Amazon. We call a standing forest, flowing rivers bioeconomy. Flowing rivers because we have no need of, damming rivers for big hydropower dams. We have plenty of energy solutions coming from renewable energy. For instance, in Roraima, where the first statement were made, there is very strong winds there. So there is a tremendous potential of also wind energy. Solar energy is available all over. Wind energy along the Atlantic coast and many other sources of renewable energy. So we can combine really the traditional knowledge with the scientific knowledge to come up with this new bioeconomy, standing forest, flowing rivers bioeconomy, because the value of biodiversity transformed into economic value through products, through knowledge, through processes, is much higher than cattle or grain or illegal mining. So basically, that's the concept that we are trying to develop. We call Amazonia 4.0, how to bring modern industry, modern technologies, and empowering local population with those technologies, along with their traditional knowledge, and to bring to them, to the rural populations, also urban populations in the Amazon, a higher standard of living. So this is a very disruptive way, but it's very possible because modern technologies are accessible, user-friendly, inexpensive, and also durable. So they can be brought to the heart of the forest and empower all the population. So this is our challenge, is merging traditional knowledge with modern knowledge, modern technologies. And we are very optimistic that we are going to demonstrate that maintaining traditional people and empowering these people with technologies will be the way to reach ideal economy for the Amazon with the forest standing. And the forest standing will be very important to combat the climate crisis. And not only the remaining forests, but also we have to restore. We have cleared 1 million square kilometers in the Amazon basin out of 6.2 million square kilometers. 17% of the forest has been cleared. Something like 5 to 8% is high stages of degradation that we are seeing in the last 2 years. The fire entering the forest in these degraded forests. So we can certainly restore a large fraction of this clear-cut forest, of degraded forest. Therefore, we can create the agroforestry systems, and the indigenous people would be also very important in carrying out this restoration of the areas, not within their territories, because it's very well protected, but around the indigenous areas, it's highly degraded. Look at Xingu territory. It's surrounded by deforestation. Even within the indigenous territories, illegal deforestation, illegal land grabbing, organized crime are operating, affecting, threatening the rights of the indigenous people, threatening their lives. So also indigenous people should have a very important role in forest restoration. So that would be my initial thoughts about how to merge science with traditional knowledge to improve the well-being of traditional populations, particularly indigenous people.
Perfect, Carlos. Thank you for your very important highlight on that, because I mean, you have years and years of experience, and it's also very nice to hear all of the things that you have been studying, among others, such as Tom Lovejoy and others that are like studying the Amazon. So I would like to highlight some things that you mentioned that it's very nice. It's the possibility that the Amazonia 4.0 and the strategy is to bring modern technology and empower these traditional people with this modern science, let's say, in a way. Mostly because these technologies are very accessible and durable. So we can use that, for example, to have solar system, like in very deep and also very far away territories. Also, it's important that you mentioned it, the recognition of the cultural value of these traditional people among and also for the forest. This is very important because we are very related, and we see a lot of economic scenarios, macroeconomics impacts of that, but it's very difficult to tangibilize and to have the value, the numbers of values, because this is very qualitative for not only the indigenous people, but also for the territory among others. You mentioned it about Terra Preta, which is dark earth that is years and years along here in the territory, and these people has all of the background on that, and currently only that we can see this in science. So it's very nice that you brought it, and it was a very warm-up situation so we can move on for our next question, which is also, I would like to invite Jósimo to come here. So Steven, so can you please add him with Carlos as well? Yes, thank you. And as Carlos mentioned about these bottlenecks, these challenges that we are facing to bridge this, but in the other hand, we have a lot of opportunities. I would like to ask you both, how can we have a very effective narrative? Because sometimes I have the feeling that we are facing a lot of difficulties, especially because on the communication side, it's very difficult to approximate, for example, the science with the traditional knowledge, with the policymakers. So how could we bring this? How could we put this together to face this crisis of communication and narrative? So, Jósimo or Carlos, who would like to address first?
Jósimo, go ahead.
In my opinion, first of all, everybody needs to think. The nature is life. Nature is life. The frogs are people like us. For example, if I look a frog and if I see you in my view, like Indigenous Puyanawa, the Puyanawa Indigenous, we have the same people. We live in the nature. We live in the nature. So the rivers, the land, animals, my elders always say, in Puyanawa now, cha. Dukundi mana dirukia masakuinsi. Montaraya, Puyachanki, Kampung, Vuinta, Nandum, Ande, Bahu. My son, every day we say, the nature, the frogs, the birds, and the lakes is also everyone, everybody. So this is my message. Like Carlos Nobre, Gabriela, and everybody. If we see everyone like frogs and the thoughts like frogs, we have to protect the nature. Each other live like the same species and persons. This is my message. I don't know if you understand my English, but I have tried to speak using feeling like Indigenous. Okay.
Perfect, Jósimo. Thank you for your message. It was very powerful, and I wish I could speak also your language because I think it's very beautiful the way you speak.
It is easier for me speaking my language.
I bet.
Okay.
So, Carlos, could you please address a bit on how can we face this crisis of communications? Because sometimes I have the feeling that it's a lot about narrative also.
There is a gap between what Brazilians express in the opinion polls. The last two opinion polls asking the question about the Amazon. In one, 97% of Brazilians responded they are in favor of protecting, preserving, conserving the Amazon, and the other one, 99%. So it seems to be this big gap. I mean, the Brazilians want that, all Brazilians. However, Brazil has a population which is 80% urban. And unfortunately, the urban Brazilians are losing connectivity with nature. There are a lot of people in Manaus who have not gone to the forest. They are 15 to half an hour by car to the forest. So we are still lacking, although that became a very strong value for Brazilians. Regardless of ideology, if 99% of Brazilians want the Amazon to be saved, to be preserved, it is completely independent of ideology, because let's say all the people who voted for the current president in 2018, they also want to preserve the Amazon. The president does not want to preserve the Amazon. So it's not ideological. This is a value, a cultural value of protecting the Amazon. And when you ask Brazilians, they say that much more strongly than when they say they want also to protect the Atlantic rainforest, the Cerrado, but the Amazon is in their heart, became a value for all Brazilians. But still, as Jósimo was saying, if you really do not go and see nature unfolding before your eyes, so that becomes a cultural value, a distant value. So the narrative, we have somehow to demonstrate, to show, to induce Brazilians, urban Brazilians, to get to know nature. They don't have, if they are in southeast, southern Brazil, northeast, they don't have to go to the Amazon. Very few Brazilians can afford doing ecotourism in the Amazon, unfortunately. But if they are connected to nature in the neighborhood where they live, so I think, the narrative, it would become much stronger. And if that is the case, then Brazilians will exercise their power in democracies. People can exercise a very important power, which is responsible, sustainable consumption, responsible, sustainable consumers. If anybody trying to buy a product from the Amazon, even from agribusiness, would want to make sure about the origin and would only buy a pack of meat or timber for construction with certification of origin, traceability. Deforestation drivers would reduce, not to zero, because unfortunately deforestation, land grabbing is something that the organized crime took over, but it would reduce substantially. So I think, we're lacking the connectivity between the will of 97, 99% of Brazilians and a narrative of protecting the forest. We have to find this bridge, or to build this bridge. We still don't have this bridge connecting will to actions to protect the forest.
This is absolutely true, Carlos, and it's very important events like this one, and information, and also this exchange of things like today, because I have the feeling that young people, youths, are a lot more engaged and also concerned about the future, because it's, if you're not related to the cause, it's very tough to move forward and to have more engagement of people. And youths, in the other hand, are doing a lot, are engaging on that. This event, it's a specific, a very nice example, because there is a lot of people changing careers also to study this and be that. But I think we still have to do more, and not only us that are involved in this, but also political scenarios, political people, and because I think it's a transformative agenda that we have to bring together.
Yes, absolutely in agreement with you. Your statements summarize very much what we are saying. So this is an effort, and it's very important, the initiative of this project, Youth Climate Leaders, because we need really to face the challenges of combating climate change, which is a global challenge. And we need youth leaders. We need your generation, the generation of most people watching this live debate, really to completely change their way of lives. They have to be very consistent, responsible consumers, and also they have to go out and and to demonstrate their concern about the risks, the disappearance of the Amazon, disappearance of indigenous groups. Before FUNAI was created, the almost total genocide that indigenous groups suffered in Brazil, we got down in the 1940s to something like less than 60,000 indigenous people in all over Brazil. So after Marshal Rondon created FUNAI and started demarcating indigenous territories, so that would really gave some room for protecting indigenous people. Under the 1989 Constitution ensure rights of the indigenous people to their historical territories. So we saw, the indigenous culture improving a lot, and today we have something like 900,000 indigenous people in Brazil. So in 1940s, we're almost to zero. But of course, there are many threats. We are very far from being happy with valuing, respecting indigenous cultures. We have really, and the youth climate leaders, the youth leaders, you have a big responsibility. Your generation has at the same time combat climate change, move to renewable energy, move to sustainable agriculture, move to sustainable infrastructure, and at the same time respect the rights of all indigenous traditional populations all over the planet. And we Brazilians, we have really to value, to respect the rights of the indigenous people in Brazil, because they are maintaining the forest. They are maintaining. This is a service for humankind forever. So we should really pay our tribute to indigenous people.
Yes, Carlos, you are absolutely right. And regarding youths and all of these, I would say, pressured agenda that youths have for not only for today, but for the future, do you and also Jósimo have any comment about climate careers here in the Amazon? Because Carlos is running this strategy here in the Amazon. Jósimo is studying all the ethnical and anthropology scenario with his ethnical group. So do you guys have any comments on that? So how these people can address and look for careers, and what would be a highlight career here for the Amazon and for the youths, for example?
Please go ahead, Jósimo.
Ok. Gabriela, eu vou falar em português, você pode...
Sure.
Ok. Nós, povos indígenas, temos importantes narrativas. O povo Puyanawa também se baseia muito com relação às plantações, à pesca, à caça, ainda devido a essas narrativas, né?
Jósimo is only mentioning that there is a lot of narratives that his indigenous group is facing, especially on plantation, em plantação. Que mais, Jósimo?
A caça, pesca.
Hunt, fishery.
E então, essas narrativas, de forma como os nossos ancestrais sempre deixaram, elas nos informam como viver no mundo.
He mentioned that the narratives left by his ancestors expressed a lot about how to live in the world.
Como nós vivemos no mundo, e por isso torna-se cada vez mais importante as pessoas conhecerem um pouco mais dessas narrativas, do conhecimento e das tradições indígenas. Porque...
And because of that, he's mentioning that why it's very important that people can know more about the narratives, about how to live in the world and how to go further.
Porque se nós estamos resistindo a tantos massacres há anos, Essas narrativas nos informam e elas também nos protegem de muitos e muitos de muitas e muitas coisas, como nos protegeram dos nossos colonizadores.
He's also mentioning that because their people and the indigenous people are resisting, it's because this narrative taught a lot of how to live in disorder and also how to face, for example, and what they faced in the past with the colonizers.
E para finalizar, eu vou deixar um pequeno trecho do canto Puyanawa, que diz assim.
To finalize, he's just giving us a small topic of the Puyanawa indigenous group.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Puya, 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 chanque, chanque, chanquita, chanque, chanque, chanquita. Ou seja, esse sapo precisa continuar cantando, pulando. Porque quando ele canta, isso significa que a natureza também canta e vive.
He mentioned that, I got a little bit lost, but he mentioned that that's why it's important to the frog still sing, still jump, because if he's doing it, the nature is still alive, it's still with us. It was very beautiful, Jósimo.
Obrigado.
Thank you for that. And Carlos, related to career here in the Amazon, how people can work with that, with conservation and projects like that.
Yes, unfortunately I cannot sing like Jósimo, and that was beautiful. Congratulations, Jorge. Parabéns, Jósimo, pela sua linda canção. I think, in the project I'm developing at Amazonia 4.0, we are really making a big challenge to the youth. We want young people to move in the Amazon, also people in the Amazon, youth in the Amazon, to become leaders of this transition to a sustainable bioeconomy, transition to a bioeconomy for well-being, creating jobs, creating value, protecting biodiversity, protecting indigenous groups. So we need a new era of youth leaders for the Amazon. In the Amazon, within the Amazon, certainly, but also anywhere in the world. Let's draw leaders, youth people to come to the Amazon and play that very important key role of creating these new businesses, these new ideas, these new societies, these new non-government organizations to ensure the protections of the rights of traditional people. We need really a flow, a rush of youth leaders into the Amazon with very creative ideas, and not people only willing to make a lot of money out of the Amazon. We need really people who will certainly have a well-being, because the potential, economic potential of the Amazon biodiversity is gigantic, it's infinite. So, but we need really to draw thousands and tens of thousands of youth leaders to the Amazon. So this is, I will end with this invitation to people, not only go to develop places, even within Brazil, go to the Amazon, come to the Amazon, make partnerships with Amazonian people, with Amazonian also youth leaders. Let's create a new way of living in the Amazon.
Thank you, Carlos. I thank you for your words, and Jósimo as well. It was a very great pleasure to be here with you, moderating you too. I was very nervous, as you can see, but I think it all went well. And I would like also to say that we have a lot of potential here in the forest, but also there is a lot of potential of people as well. So indigenous people, youth people, people from the region are very passionate and are very looking for. So we can bring and also construct a very robust agenda for the Amazon and for the conserved Amazon as well. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the audience that is sending a lot of information and tasks and hearts and things like that. That the panel was very amazing. And we keep in touch. Thank you for being here. All the videos will be on YouTube, I think. And thank you very much again, Carlos and Jósimo.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Adeus.
Bye.
Obrigado.
Até mais.
Até mais.